Why is it you always like, and you've been doing this for years. You take my ideas and you do them so much better than I could have ever done them. And welcome back to the Two Words Podcast, where we're playing a little bit of what if. There's always these moments in wrestling history that you wonder, what if that went just a smidge different? Mm-hmm. And so I have a couple. Matt has one that he has warned me is
it's in depth.
In standard radio Matt fashion.
Way too involved.
It's the Pepe Silva meme.
I had two of them, but I could not get done with the first one to get to the second one. Well, so I didn't want to be here all day.
That's fair. So I'll go first, and then I'll let you. We'll kind of sandwich yours in there.
Sounds good.
So my first what if is kind of a question of what would we have gotten if this had happened? And my what if is, what if Stone Cold had stayed healthy? Stone Cold had to retire in 2003, largely due in part to a neck injury he sustained during a match with Owen Hart in 1997. But what if he had stayed healthy? What if Owen had held him just another 2 inches higher? I submit a couple of things. There might not be a John Cena. John Cena would exist. Sure, I'm not because he was alive. But there would be no reason for John Cena to have come out. We had Stone Cold.
Right.
There would, I think that I think the second big thing that would have happened is I think The Rock's absence would have had a significantly less impact than it did. When he went to go do those movies, I don't think anybody would have even cared. I don't think anybody would have noticed if Stone Cold was still around. But if you have both of those guys missing starting in 2004, you've lost everything. A couple of matches I think would have been really, really great to see. If somehow John Cena had come up and started the Ruthless Aggression era, which I understand did start a little bit before he debuted, but because in all honesty, the John Cena Kurt Angle thing happened before Stone Cold's retirement.
It did.
So it's not 100% fair, but we would not have been looking to give John Cena as many chances afterwards. But I still think that John Cena and The Rock would have been, not John Cena and The Rock, John Cena and Stone Cold would have been so much fun to watch. I think that going back and forth between them would have been amazing. I think that I can't get these names right. I think that Stone Cold versus Randy Orton would have been a lot of fun. I think that Randy Orton could have been his retirement match. Yeah. Keeping in that legend killer vibe. Because in this scenario, I think Stone Cold, he retired at 39. He had to have had 10 more years in him. Putting him at 2013? Yeah. I mean, that's a significant chunk of wrestling that he could have been involved in. I think that him and CM Punk could have gone for years. Yeah. Just back and forth. Yeah. Because both of them can talk, and neither one of them have the most orthodox style of wrestling.
Right. You're making me real sad.
I know. It made me sad to write this.
All these things that could have happened.
I think a Shawn Michaels versus Stone Cold 2 could have happened.
That would have been fun.
And if it would have been half as good as the first one, would have been amazing. I think that the Ruthless Aggression era would have just been off the chain. I mean, it would have been ridiculous if Owen Hart had lifted him up 2 more inches. Yeah. And I don't blame Owen Hart. I mean, people slip, Oh, yeah. I've wrestled with my kid, and I've been,
Broke her neck twice.
I just, You ever done that? You ever been play wrestling with your kid, and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have done that?
No, thankfully, I have yet to injure my child while wrestling. I've gotten close, a couple close calls, but
Ellie really loves to she'll watch that episode of Bluey where Bingo has to find her big girl bark. And so, Ellie goes, "You play too rough." I'm like, "I'm playing exactly how we've been playing for 30 minutes." But whatever, kid. So that's my first what if. What if Stone Cold had stayed healthy? I think we would have gotten so many more fun matches. And I think that you would have killed TNA in a month.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
squash them like bugs.
It's something I didn't really realize until maybe mid-2010s. But Stone Cold really didn't wrestle all that long in the WWE.
Nope.
Compared to most wrestlers.
Nope.
Most wrestlers last.
He was there for 5 years. And he had, what, 2 WWE championship runs? I think he might have just had 1.
No, I think there were 2, maybe 3. Google that.
I'm going to Google it.
I need to know now. But they were long. Yeah, there were a couple of the long ones. See, that's the weird thing about, because they always tout that number of how many titles you've won as the big deal, when it really should be how long you held the title.
Yeah.
Because Charlotte Flair has technically had, what, like 15?
Oh, yeah.
Titles already? Yeah. I'm like, that shouldn't be. She shouldn't be almost equal with her dad in amount of titles won.
In 6 years. Right. I mean...
Any answers?
I'm Wikipedia is giving me all this information I don't need.
All right. Well, I'll set up mine.
Go with yours now.
So my what if, the big one that I wanted to do, was what if Jey Uso turned on the Bloodline at WrestleMania 39? This is a really recent story. But I want to lay it out. I laid out in the live stream what I was hoping was going to happen as we were recording. But I haven't done it in the podcast. So those of you who didn't catch that, let me just recap what I was hoping was going to happen.
Hold up. Because this number will surprise you. This article from this title...
I am surprised.
This title of an article from Bleacher Report claims Stone Cold Steve Austin's 6 WWE Championship victories.
Okay. That actually sounds more accurate. Yeah. You just threw me off by saying 2, maybe only 1.
Again, like... In a very short... We romanticize Stone Cold's contribution.
Right.
But it was really only like 6 years in the WWE.
Yeah.
And you don't really...
Even not all of those were great.
Yeah.
The first year was kind of a bust.
Yeah. And like, I was noticing we do the same thing with Hulk Hogan. Because while Hulk Hogan wrestled for like 40 years, he only stayed with certain companies for a few years.
Right, at a time.
He was never a stable.
Right.
Oh.
And it was kind of before TV too.
Yeah.
Weekly TV.
Anyway, so what if
Jey Uso turned on the Bloodline? So here's what I was hoping was going to happen. My hopes and dreams for that match with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn was that we were going to find out Jey was a double agent, essentially. That during the time that he was away, he and Sami came to an agreement on how they were going to do this and let him know that he was going to have to beat Sami up a little bit on the TV, make sure all the Bloodline trusted that he was still a part of the team. They were going to have a pretty decent match while Jey was kind of taking it easier on Sami and Kevin Owens, but trying not to make it look that way. To the point where Jimmy is worn out, Jey is going to lay out Jimmy, and then in a mirror image of what happened at War Games when Sami took out KO, and then laid out the red carpet for Roman to go pin Kevin Owens when he was being sussed as not a real part of the team. Jey would do the same thing, knock out Jimmy, and then lay out the red carpet for Sami to come pin them, take the titles. And then Sami and Kevin would get up and celebrate, and Jey would just walk up the ramp. Sami would eventually stop and look up at Jey, who would turn onto the stage and does the, we the ones finger thing up in the air. Sami does it too. This is a signifier of job accomplished. We were in this together. Now we are parting ways. Next night, during the Roman Cody match at WrestleMania, Solo and Jimmy come out to attack Cody, but Sammy and Kevin chase them out of the arena. As the match continues, Cody begins to get the upper hand. The ref gets knocked out. Heyman tosses the Universal Belt into Roman. Roman knocks Cody out with it, tosses it out, and pins him, but the ref is still out. Roman gets up and stares at the ramp waiting for a new ref when Jey slides in from behind and hits Roman across the back with a chair. Jey pulls Cody on top of Roman. The original ref stirs and begins to count. Roman kicks out, but this is the beginning of the end as Cody manages enough energy to hit the crossroads and get the pin. Cody wins. The match feels fair since each illegal action was met with an equal and opposite one. And this is essentially a clean loss for Roman, which wouldn't have happened without Jey's help. Jey stood at the top of the ramp again and watches Cody celebrate it in the ring, and Roman slowly comes to, watching Cody celebrate, and then turns to see Jey. He climbs out of the ring and begins the long walk to Jey. Jey meets him halfway on the ramp and then lays him out. And that is how that ends. That's how WrestleMania ends. Cody celebrating in the ring, Jey laying out Roman in the middle of the ramp.
And now we've broken up the bloodline.
Now we've broken up.
Now we've given Roman Reigns time off.
No, not yet. Hold on. I got
okay.
So much more.
Okay.
So much more. Not time off just yet. On the Raw after Mania, Jey comes out and explains himself. He admits that family had blinded him for too long, but Roman was not the head of the table because being head of the table would mean he knew how to protect the table. Instead, he used us as human shields, made us do his dirty work, and forced us to pull his butt out of the fire in most of his matches. And then he took all the credit for it. But he was so insecure, he forced all of us to prove ourselves over and over again, and I've had enough. It's always been in the back of my mind. Hell in a Cell 2020. I was never going to say I quit, but he threatened to really hurt my brother and take him out. So I did what family do. I know that's how he's going to say it, right? I did what family do. And we felt like we had no choice but to fall in line. But that is all Roman has ever done since. Put one of us in a chokehold to prove ourselves to him. And then Sammy Uso came. And I don't even remember how he weaseled his way into the bloodline, but he won us all over. And he proved himself over and over and over again. And when Roman tried to force him to end Kevin Owens' career, pushing him around, manipulating him, Roman put the target on his own back, and Sammy handed Sammy the loaded gun. Sammy had no other choice. I took off. Most shows, I was at home or at a hotel watching the show. What was it that the wise man said? Sometimes you see things on TV that you don't see when you're here live. And I watched Roman treat my brother like dirt, plotting to take his anger towards me out on him. More and more manipulation. And here would be where Jey plays clips of what Roman has said every time Jimmy left the room. Roman has manipulated his way into power and kept it by forcing us to stay in line or be punished. Well, at WrestleMania, I said I quit again. But this time, I quit being taken advantage of in the name of family. The Tag Championships, the WWE Championship, the Universal Championship, they are exactly where they need to be right now, out of Bloodline hands. Roman's music plays. Out walks Roman, flanked by an angry Jimmy, Solo, and Heyman. Roman gives this long, impassioned speech about after everything I've done for you, blah, 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 blah. Jey interrupts, what have you done for me? What have you done for me? Thank you so much for having the wise man cater seafood to the jet every week so you could send us away to get out of your hair. Beyond the salmon, Oos, what on earth have you done for me? Jimmy takes the mic and goes on a how could you do this to me speech. Roman cuts him off. Who cares about your little tag titles? He cost me my 1,000-day reign. Jimmy briefly looks offended, but falls in line. Roman challenges Jey to a no DQ match at Backlash. Loser leaves SmackDown. Just like his match with Daniel Bryan in 2021, I believe. Jey accepts. Over the course of the next 3 weeks, Jey is approached by Cody, Sammy, and even a hesitant KO, all saying that they will have his back at Backlash. Jey thanks them all, but says he's got to do this on his own. Meanwhile, Roman and the rest of the Bloodline stay off TV, leaving Paul Heyman to be the only voice each week coming to the ring to hype up the real skill of Roman Reigns. Each week, he's interrupted by Cody, Sammy, or KO, but never by Jey. Finally, it's the SmackDown before Backlash. Roman and Jey face each other in a contract signing. Jimmy, Solo, and the Wise Men are flanking Roman. Jey is standing alone. After the signing, Roman stands up, looks at Jey's signature, turns to walk out, and says, do it. Solo attacks Jey. Jimmy moves like he's going to, but he hangs back, which gets Roman's attention. Solo lays out Jey. Roman asks Jimmy, what's wrong with you? And Jimmy just said, Solo's got this. He got him. and walks out ahead of the rest of the Bloodline. Roman is visibly uneasy with this. The next night is Backlash. Told you this was involved. Roman and Jey have a hellacious match, taking them all around the arena, backstage, back to the ring. Roman has suffered far too many 2 counts for his comfort. In run Solo and Jimmy. However, Solo is once again the only one to attack Jey, and Jey lays bloodied. Jimmy pulls Solo off of him. They get into each other's faces, with Jimmy yelling he's had enough. Roman sees this and is furious. He grabs Jimmy to turn him around, and on instinct, Jimmy swings at Roman, knocking him down. Roman is shocked. His lip is busted, and Jimmy's saying, "It was an accident. It was an accident." KO and Sammy come out and tackle Solo, 2-on-1, beating him up as they fight, leaving the arena. Jey and Roman both stand up, with Jimmy in the middle, waiting for one or both of them to attack him. He looks back and forth to try to decide where his loyalties lie. Roman, visibly losing it, runs to Jimmy, who ducks a clothesline from Roman, scoops Roman up, and connects a 1D with Jey. Jey then pins Roman 1, 2, 3. Roman must leave SmackDown. Jey attempts to celebrate with Jimmy, but Jimmy is still confused. He didn't really want any of this. He doesn't attack Jey, but he doesn't celebrate either. Instead, he walks out on his own. Roman now is gone. Gets his break that he was supposed to be getting. He's off TV for several months. In the meantime, Jey and Solo have a back-and-forth rivalry for a while. Jimmy, all the while, is refusing to be in anyone's corner. He can't forgive Jey for turning on him, and Paul Heyman makes it clear that Roman will never forgive him for turning on Roman at Backlash. Jimmy is a man without a friend. Over the months, we see him actively avoiding anyone from the Bloodline, interviews, anything. He works as a singles competitor, goes out, wins matches, and leaves without a hand raised or an after-match interview. Cut to 1 month before SummerSlam. WWE is holding their draft. That's right. I'm postponing the draft till right before SummerSlam.
Fine.
First draft pick to Raw, Roman Reigns. Second draft pick to Raw, Jey Uso, who is now the Intercontinental Champion. I didn't need to put that whole story in there, but over this time, he's won the Intercontinental Championship. Third draft to Raw.
He beat your prized German.
He did. Jimmy Uso, third pick to Raw. Roman demands his rematch with Cody Rhodes, who eventually grants it. Jimmy challenges Jey to an IC match. The Raw before Backlash, or not Backlash, I'm sorry. The Raw before SummerSlam, Roman is seen talking to LA Knight, current holder of the Money in the Bank briefcase. I don't need to add that story either.
It's just what's going to happen.
The commentators say that it looks like Roman is threatening LA Knight to not intervene at SummerSlam, to not cash it in the Cody Roman match. SummerSlam, Jimmy and Jey are the opening match. After a great exchange for 10 minutes, Roman Reigns comes out and spears them both, then motions to the back, outruns LA Knight, who cashes in his Money in the Bank and becomes a triple threat for the IC title. Knight pins Jimmy, wins, and takes off with the belt. Both Usos sit up, dumbfounded at what just happened. Main event, a 5-star match between Roman and Cody is going on. At one point, the Usos run out to assist Cody, but Cody turns around and tells them to stop, that he will fight his own battles. Which, of course, is a distraction long enough for Roman to ready up his Superman punch. Roman pins Cody and wins back the Undisputed Championship. Jimmy and Jey stand dumbfounded on the ramp when Solo Sikoa, how do you say it? Sikoa strikes them from behind. Solo and Heyman join Roman in the ring and all strike an intimidating pose as Michael Cole announces the head of the table is back on top. Who is left to challenge Roman Reigns? Suddenly lights go out in the arena. The crowd begins to swell with mysterious anxiety. If you smell, and the crowd loses their absolute minds. The Rock trots out of the platform and walks from side to side, causing each side of the arena to get crazier, and he stares down Roman Reigns as the show fades to black. From there, the Usos reform as a tag team, but as a face one for now, and joins The Rock's table. This leads to a 6-month build-up to WrestleMania 40. Who is the real head of the table? And I'll stop it there.
That's amazing. Are you paying attention to this, Hunter?
Can I be a WWE writer, please? Tell me we wouldn't lose our minds.
Oh my goodness.
Every step of the way.
That's a good story. That's a good story. I should have let you go last. I don't have anything near that fun. I don't. Why is it you always, like, and you've been doing this for years. You take my ideas and you do them so much better than I could have ever done them.
I'm just passionate.
You are. No, you're just so like. Yeah, I'm just telling you, like, the Radio Matt is the most creative human being I've ever met in my entire life.
All right, so here's the deal, and this is something you might not know about me. When I was in 8th grade, me and a few online friends started like an online wrestling federation thing with all our favorite wrestlers from all of the different companies.
Yeah.
And we each created full-on scripts for shows and pay-per-views exactly in this format. And then we'd each take turns like reading it like we're doing it right now.
Okay.
And so we had people who would be betting on who was going to win and all this kind of stuff. We had like a good little community of people that were invested in how we were going to write all this stuff out, like fan fiction, essentially, fan fiction wrestling. And so I did that for a solid 9 months, and I had a lot of fun doing it.
Sounds awesome.
And so this feels like it brought me back to that.
I need you to I need like a wrestling, like RPG. And I need you to be the dungeon master or the ring master or whatever it is.
I also...
Why do they not have one? They got to have one of those.
I'm sure there is. I also wrote with 2 other people full-on scripts for a fan fiction that combined wrestling and Star Trek. And it was called Wrestle Trek. And I have all of my episodes in a folder.
That's amazing. That's amazing. There's Amazon has a game called Worldwide Wrestling, the role-playing game.
Oh, yeah.
And it looks cheesy.
Of course it does.
But I'm here for it. That was fun. I enjoyed that more than I enjoyed watching Raw. Well, so my what if doesn't really go with a storyline. My what if answers a question I think we've all been trying to answer. We've all wondered this at one point or another. What if Sting had signed with the WWE in 2001? Now, we're all aware that Sting could have signed with the WWE in 2001, and there were several negotiations to make that happen, but it seems in the 11th hour, it all just kind of fell through with no explanation from either side. But what if he had? And my presumption is this. If Sting had signed with the WWE, Kofi Kingston would have never become WWE champion. Now, so after Sting chose not to sign with the WWE, he floated around with the World Wrestling All-Stars before joining the Jeff Jarrett Project Total Nonstop Action in 2003. Now, before his signing in 2003, TNA's roster was absolutely full of nobodies. Sure, there were a couple of stars like Sabu, Raven, Gangrel, Road Dogg, and D'Lo, along with future megastars like AJ Styles, CM Punk, and Christopher Daniels. But there was nobody that was going to carry that brand. There was absolutely nobody that anybody actually cared about in the wrestling community. And sorry to all the aforementioned stars, but you get it. That is, until they signed Sting in 2003. Now, it took a couple of years, but that gave them enough traction to eventually sign the likes of Kurt Angle, Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Goldust, Christian Cage, Booker T. Now, I mentioned the future megastars, and one of those future megastars that it was eventually signed in TNA was one Austin Creed in 2007. Creed revealed that he had secured a spot one time in an interview with Deep South Wrestling, which was a developmental territory of WWE. But 3 months later, Deep South shut down. And Austin Creed went to TNA in 2007 from 2007 to 2010. Now, I propose that without those 3 years in TNA, he would have never signed I think it was 1 or 2 years later with NXT to do their developmental. He would have never met up met back up with Kofi Kingston because they had met shortly in Deep South. They would have never formed New Day. New Day would have never gained the traction that it would have. And you would have had 3 megastars that faded off into nothingness. Big E Langston was not Big E Langston before the New Day.
That's right.
He could have been. We all saw that he was going to be a big star, but he was not going to be the New Day star that he became. Kofi Kingston was losing traction before New Day. He was. All 3 of those guys started New Day to keep their jobs, and that's from them. That's not from me. So, without Sting making TNA a formidable place to wrestle, a legitimate place to wrestle, because Sting does not get enough credit, because he seems to be the only person, and this comes from somebody who was not a huge wrestling fan in 2002, but even I knew who Sting was, and he never wrestled in the WWE. He is the only person from WCW that I really actually knew who that was, with the exception of like Hulk Hogan, because like everybody knows who Hulk Hogan was, but he was also in the WWF before.
Yeah.
So I think without that notoriety, I think that without him bringing everything he brought to the table, you would have never had TNA. TNA would have shut down in a couple of years or become the shell of a company that it is now. And you would have never gotten Austin Creed getting that chance to eventually become Xavier Woods.
Yeah.
You also would have never had I think most importantly, we would have never had the Steiner Math promo. And do you want to live in that world? Because I don't. I mean, yeah, and I looked at the roster, and there's a website where you can go and see what the roster looked like on any given day of the year at that time, and it's like literally in 2003 there was nobody, and then in 2005 it was everybody. Like that place was bananas in 2006. So,
yep.
Thank you, Sting.
You're right.
We would not. I feel like, and I kind of feel like Robert Zemeckis, who wrote Forrest Gump and Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Because there's a theory that like the only reason he did that was to give white people credit for the accomplishments of black people. And I kind of feel like it did that, but I think that at the very least.
This is your cousin, Marvin. You know, Marvin Berry.
Marvin Berry.
You know that new sound you're looking for? Well, listen to this.
There was an episode of Cracked After Hours where one of them was like, I can only imagine that like the sequels to Back to the Future were just him being like, hey, George Washington Carver, pick up those peanuts. Hey, Michael Jordan, pick up that basketball. Like, that's it. Well, those answer at least some of my questions about what if. Obviously, there are many, many more, but let us know what your favorite what if scenario is. Go into as much detail as you can. Get excited about it, as excited as we are about it, and then go and write us a paragraph of things to read in any of our socials at 2 words LTN. That's on any of our socials. I don't know. I mean, Facebook, I guess, would be the only place you could write a long...
I mean, you could do a whole thread in Twitter. It's fine.
You could do a whole thread in Twitter. Do a whole thread in Twitter. Do it. Just throw it up there. Make it happen.